Dear students, greetings for the day. Today we will study about types of fullness part 1. Objectives: to acquire knowledge on different types of fullness, to familiarize with the control of fullness in garments, to know about the suitability of various types of fullness for different age groups, fashion trends, etc. Fullness of material is an important feature of the style as well as a necessity for ease of movement in a well-fitted garment, whereas fashion changes the basic methods of controlling fullness that frequently recur, though adapted to enhance the current style. Fullness is introduced into garments for various reasons such as I. To give good shape and proper fit to the garment. 2. To allow freedom of movement and comfort to the wearer, and 3. To make the garment look attractive. Dots, tucks, pleats, gathers, etc. are some of the devices for introducing fullness. Dots. Dots are used to shape a flat piece of fabric to fit the curves of a figure. Dots are generally made on the wrong side. Their size and position depend upon the type of shaping and fullness required. It disposes fullness by withholding width or length, yet giving a smooth appearance to the garment. It is made by stitching a line that tapers to a point along a fold and gives a shape to the body bulge wherever it ends. It always points towards the fullest part of the body. Width of the dot influences the extent of shaping. Wider dots provide more shaping and narrower dots less shaping. The dots are generally functional and sometimes may be decorative too. Functional dots are those that are necessary for fitting of body curves at bust, hip, shoulder and elbow. Examples of functional dots are back waist dots, front underarm and under bust, front and back dots in a close-fitting skirt, etc. Decorative dots may serve this functional purpose as well as add significance to the design. While making a dot, the length of the dot and width of the dot should be considered. Types of dots. 1.1.1 Single dot. The most common dot is the straight dot. This standard dot is triangular in shape, wide at one end and pointed at the other. It is used at the bust, the back shoulder, skirt waist, pants back and at elbows. It should be machined from the wide end to the narrow end, tapering off to nothing at the point. The threads should be fastened at the tapered ends with a knot. Double-pointed dots. These dots are wide in the middle and pointed at both ends. It should be stitched in 2 steps. Start from the middle where the dot is widest and stitch to one end, then go back to the middle and stitch to the other end. Dots should be pressed after stitching. This dot is generally used on one-piece dresses or close-fitted shirts, blouses and jackets. The general rule is to press vertical dots towards center front, or center back, and horizontal dots downward. For heavy fabrics, cut along the fold of dots to within 1 inch of the point and press them open. 1.1.3 Decorative dots. A dot may sometimes be stitched only part way. The unstitched part then looks somewhat like a tuck. Such dots are called dot tucks. Any dot placed in an unusual manner or stitched on the right side of the garment can be said to be decorative. Usually these dots are very small. 2.0 Tucks. A tuck is a fold of fabric stitched in place by running stitch or machine stitch on the right side of the garment as a means of shaping the garment to the body, for holding in fullness or adds decorative effect at shoulders, waistlines, yokes, pockets or cuff sleeves etc. The tucks that are partly stitched help in shaping the garments. These are also used in children's garments to hold the allowance for growth. Tucks add body to thin fabrics and textural interest to plain fabrics. Tucks can be used in groups or clusters and in graduated width. When calculating the amount of material that is needed, each tuck calls for an allowance equal to twice its finished width. So for making a group of 4 tucks of 1/8 inch finished width, allow 4x 1/8/2 equals 1 inch extra material. To stitch each tuck, fold along middle so that stitching lines coincide. Then stitch along the markings. Cut the garment section only after completing the stitching of the tucks in case of tucks appearing on curved edges such as armholes, necklines or yoke lines. Use of correct needles, matching threads and stitch density for making tucks are important, as the quality of the tucks depending on these factors. There are several methods of tacking. 2.1 Pin tucks. These are tiny dainty tucks used on baby clothes and fine blouses. They are very narrow tucks having the width of a pinhead, hence the name. These are made generally less than 1/8 inch wide and the space may be around 0.5 centimeters. Lace may be inserted between the groups of tucks. 2.2 Wide tucks. These are mainly used for holding the fullness in place. They are also used for decoration on garments, especially evening wear. The width of the tuck may vary from 0.5 cm to 2.5 cm as per the location on the garment. 2.3 Piped or corded tucks. These are made by placing cording on the wrong side of the fabric at center of tuck fold, as though it is enclosed, before stitching the tuck. Stitching should be done close to cording, taking care not to pick up the cord into the stitch. Shell or scalloped tucks. The finished tucks resemble a shell or scalloped edge and hence the name. These are made purely for decorative purposes, especially on babies' dresses. The shell pattern like faint dots can be placed on a folded tuck and the tuck are stitched using small running stitches. At the dot point, 2 overcast stitches through the dot are made and pull tight to hold the shell, and the needle is made to run into the next dot. Generally soft fabrics are suitable for making shell tucks. 2.5 Cross tucks. When rows of tucks are stitched along the fabric in both horizontal and vertical directions, the decoration is called cross-tucking. First, make the horizontal tucks by spacing them at desired width and press them to one side. Then stitch the vertical tucks. Generally, this decoration is made in yoke or in a blouse with tiny pin tucks to provide delicacy. Pleats. Garment drape beautifully when pleats are introduced into the garment. Pleats are folds of fabric that provide fullness in some parts of a garment. They can be placed single or in a series and can be pressed flat or left unpressed, according to the style of the garment. Pressed pleats give a smooth, slimming line to a garment, whereas unpressed pleats provide a softer and fuller shape. Pleats are introduced generally at the waistline of skirts and dresses, to provide fullness evenly all around. The preparation of pleats is similar to that of tucks, the main difference being that pleats are seldom stitched all the way down. Sometimes they are stitched part way down the garment for flatness. Each pleat requires extra material of twice the width of the finished pleat. If pleats are to touch each other or overlap little, all round the garment 3 times the finished width of the fabric may be required. Types of pleats. 3.1.1 Knife or side pleats. These pleats are generally found in skirts, especially to provide fullness at the bottom of the garment. They are generally about 1/2 inch to 1 inch wide and are turned towards the same direction. The direction may be reversed at center back or center front of the garment. To make knife pleats, fold the top fold line and bring the fold line to the placement line. The pleats may be tacked or pinned along the folded edge and then tacked on the top of the pleat before stitching on the machine. Pleats can be top stitched in place from waist to hip to produce the slender effect. Box pleats. 2 knife pleats turned away from each other, one to the left and one to the right, form a box pleat. To make a box pleat, the fabric is made into 2 equal folds and turning them away from each other, so that the folds meet at the back. These are used quite often for uniforms. Sometimes 1 or 2 box pleats are made in the center front or center back to vary the design. Inverted pleat. It is the opposite of a box pleat. It is made up of 2 knife pleats turned towards each other so that the folds meet in the middle on the right side of the garment. It is usually designed at center front or center back and looks like 2 knife pleats facing away from each other on the underside. To make an inverted box pleat, take 2 pleats of equal depth with right sides together. Pin along the pleat line. To make the pleat firm, tack along the pleat line from the lower edge, then stitch along the seam line and press them open. When both box and inverted box pleats are made in a row, they look alike as they are the 2 sides of the pleat series. Kick pleats. A kick pleat is an opening in a seam backed by a fabric fold or extensions from the seam allowances that form a pleat backing. If it is without a pleat backing, it is called a vent. This is actually a knife or inverted pleat which has the fullness released in the lower 6 to 8 inches of the skirt. When a skirt draft lacks fullness, which is actually required, it is easy to provide fullness by the use of kick pleat without altering the pattern. These pleats allow for movement in a straight skirt and is inserted at the base of center back seam side of panel seams. To make a kick pleat, stitch plain seam and place the underlay to each side of seam allowance and across the top of the pleat.